Hey, how you guys doing? Okay, let's get in this. We'll do one of these and then we'll get busy. There we go. And so now what we'll do is we'll get on to our puzzles. I might not puzzles. Wesley So played some games today on Paris, the Rapid one, and he did really good. So I'm going to start with Vladimir Kramnik's game. 1 second. And then we'll go through the game I just played too, and then we'll get into all our studies, and then we'll do some puzzles and we'll have some fun. Okay, let's do it. G6. Wesley, oh sorry, Wesley's black, so I need to turn the board. I have one of Wesley being white and one of Wesley being black where he won. He kind of did the English opening. Not kind of, he did the English opening. It's kind of a little different than what I've seen before is this setup here. And so he has to fortify so he doesn't lose the pawn. But if you notice, bishop's a good idea, potentially castles, and then maybe a thrust of d5. d5 right away. Pawn takes. Now he's got a really strong center. Vlad does have the two central pawns though. So d4 was played by Vlad. So c takes d, knight takes d, knight takes d, e takes d. Because you can't take with the queen, because if you took with the queen, of course you guys see what would happen. Whoop, see you later. And that would be a handshake and move on to the next game. So he takes with the pawn. Now Vlad can't castle because the bishop cuts off castling. Rook to b1, rook takes b1, king takes. So castling rights are all over but the crying. So potentially castling might be an idea for Wesley, and that's what he did. So rook c1 to dominate this open file on the c8 the c file. c8 challenges it. King goes to g2. He's castling by hand, so that is a possible idea that you can do sometimes. And then the knight comes in. So if rook takes, then the bishop, queen would take, and it might come down to a draw. So you never know. So queen f3. Vlad doesn't want a draw. He wants to go for the win because he's white. Usually when you're white, you want to go for the knockout. Rook takes e1. Rook takes e1, and knight takes. So Wesley won a pawn. But you have to also be careful of potentially rook infiltrating onto e7, not at this moment. Also, you have to be careful of queen takes d5. But yeah, then you have to be really concerned with the knight's also hanging at that point. So what happened is there's a fork of these two pieces, so one's going to fall. And there's really no way to stop the fork, so I'm wondering if if we did queen takes, knight takes, rook takes, check, and you're down material, so you really can't take at that point. So you kind of have to that was a really interesting idea. That really was, to say the least. That was pretty darn tootin' interesting. I gotta say that was a good move by Vlad. You gotta love that. The knight's now guarding. Oh, infiltration central for Wesley. Bishop c1. Now the bishop is trying to come into an attack with a potential bishop c5 and the queen hammering home on f2. Now the queen's under fire, now with a potential rook to either f5 or rook to h5, either one of those potentially, because, and maybe if this bishop moves, you have a nice idea there. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Queen comes back, check. I'm wondering if queen to... No, there's still a check there. Well, yeah, I think queen d7 might have been better. Let's see if we're right. Thank you. Let me see here. Okay, that got played. So takes. Let's see why queen d7 isn't the best. I'm gonna just take a quick eye in the sky on that. Okay, because alright. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that would be losing. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was kind of a little... There's really no way to handle this here. I kind of like this move here. But I think it's losing, yeah. So just at this point it's game over. Sorry guys. At this point it's game over. So we have to remember that he could just take here, and there's really nothing. It's mate 10, so that was a good game. So we're gonna look at this one. Wesley's white here, and he's facing MVL. He's playing Zergatort, opening the Sicilian. G3, G6, bishop takes, which is actually kind of dubious. You need to kind of develop. You need to develop, but it does. You know what this kind of reminds me of is a game that Karpov played. I forgot the gentleman who he played it against. It's also in the book, Jeremy Silman. I think it's Reassess Your Chess, if I'm not mistaken. He had a game where Karpov actually fianchettoed his bishop and then took here for one purpose, to dominate the d5 square. That was basically, that's the basis of the whole game, was can white dominate the d4 square. I mean, not d4, d5. Sorry, it was kind of a black move. I think it was. I hope I'm saying that right. Let me see if the game actually does come up here. It might come up with Karpov's game. I'll see. It may actually come up. No, drat. Maybe it was black who did it to white, but it was something very similar to this. It was something very. They're going to start trying to play for what white. Black's going to try to hold d5 so that white doesn't get to d5. That's the whole thing. If white can get enough pieces and control d5, he's going to win positionally. Otherwise, what'll happen is he'll lose because he's down a bishop, because this is going to end up becoming an open position, and if black can hold, if white can hold, sorry, other way around. If black can hold, he wins. If white can get d5, white wins. Oops, sorry. Takes. And so now they kind of have a very similar position. It's actually exactly the same, except one thing: white has a knight developed. And there we go. Okay, now this is when white traded off. White didn't want to go down the Karpov game, because Karpov really, he like boa constricted his opponent until his opponent cracked and he won. He won a piece, and then the guy his player resigned at that point. Castles. Now there's a pin. And potentially now we have a queen infiltration to d6, and then we would actually win a pawn in that line. Okay, so rook. What would happen if rook d6? Okay, so he can actually move at that point. Okay, so that was another inaccurate move. Okay, knight drops in, very dubious. Knight bd5, dubious. And what he should be playing for is either d5. Remember, dropping a knight into d5, potentially going after black's dark squared bishop, because yes, it's somewhat of a closed game, but white potentially could open up the position. But you have to figure, is it worth trading a knight off for a bishop? And I think it would be a yes, it is. Because if he plays like that, then you could just take, queen takes, you can double up your rooks. And if he goes there, takes, oopsie, sorry. He would have to take, that's right. Then takes. And now there's a pretty good attack coming down the idea, but this knight's outposted forever, so there's no way of kicking it off. So I don't know if that's actually the wisest idea. Yeah, sometimes the best thing to do is just to get the knight out of there. But now this dark squared bishop is also, it's not really outposted forever, because the pawn chain might be able to get undermined, but I don't know. See, now you see the power of the d4 and d5, because there's no pawns really to challenge these two squares here. Because if you get a bishop or a knight there, you stop the pawn from advancing. So e8, rook f1, rook takes, queen takes. d6, dubious. And now what we're trying to do is see if we can't infiltrate in like something similar to that, and maybe even here, there, and there. You know, you get a lot of attack going. Bishop D, dubious. Queen takes. You win a pawn. Takes. Takes. Check. Check. And so it's kind of, you know, it's very weird if you want to think about it, but in theory, white's better here, because really there's no way that white can dominate the 7th rank basically forever. And if the queen ever moves, we win another pawn. If it comes down, we just come over. If it takes, we take. If it takes, we take. And we've basically destroyed the majority of we destroyed all the king side, our queen side, and we still have a passed pawn. We have a safer king than black's king. So queen B takes, king takes, queen D4, which is a mistake. King moves up, check, and H3, H5, a mistake there. A4, and game over here, because the queen's actually pretty much trapped. I think if the queen goes there, you just win. If he plays there, you just take. If he plays there, you just check. If the king comes up, in comes our sweet pawn, because there's no way this whole diagonal here is protected by this bishop, so there's no real checks. You can't even infiltrate in that way because the king guards this square. So this pawn's going to end up promoting, and when it does, when the pawn does promote, like I'll show you kind of an idea. Let's say that something like this. We'll say that he kind of plays, we'll say here. Let's say that he plays there. You check. When the king moves, you queen takes, and rook takes, and it's all over. This is kind of what would happen, and rather than having MVLC in that, he decided to just resign, because it's so not fun to get in a position like right here is, let me see, I believe this is where he resigned, if I'm not mistaken. Here, yeah. I think he resigned here. I think this is where he resigned, because remember we showed that both these pawns will fall, and this will come up the board and queen, and then the queen's going to have to sacrifice her life there. Okay, now we'll go over one of my games that we decided, hold on, to check out, and then we'll do some of our London system. Come on. Hey, how you doing? We got a manual Lasker game. Perfect. Let's take a look at our friend Lasker. Oh wow. Let's pull up a... So we have to turn the board. Okay. Oh, the Budapest Italia game. I'm surprised White actually did that. This actually was better for White now in this position. This is like crazy. You know, it's like, yeah. Now we can retreat back and go for a break in the center with our two bishops attack. G4, H5, Knight H2, A5, B takes A5, Bishop takes A5. I gotta say, White's pawn structure is so much better because it's actually in one piece. Black structure is not. Black structure is better. White's pawn structure is bad. That's what I should have said. If I said it the other way around, that's what I mean. Oh, you would play that? That's funny. To get a bind like that is pretty much, it could potentially go towards a draw, but you're gonna have to sacrifice a piece for that. And this is getting a little intense because G5 is a potential idea. H, and then G6 takes. Okay. To get this safety, this kind of like was a huge bind. Let me see here. And then, yeah. Wow, that was an intense game for sure. Now you see why the king moved over to H8, huh? Yeah. Check. Because if he takes here, he'll lose a he loses a piece. Actually, no, he can't take there. Sorry, I have to get rid of that. And then that falls. There goes. Yeah, that's mate. Gotta love that. let's see, move 5. Okay, 25. Let's take a look. Oh, you're saying if the rook played here, yeah, the bishop would actually block. Yeah, well, you kind of have that. I like that idea. I think this wins, if I'm not mistaken. Because if you take there, I think you're still okay. Let's see here. Yeah. You just got to be careful with your checks. You have to make sure if white accidentally played this, you get mate. I'm getting better at finding mating nets, I gotta say so. So I think potentially maybe a check here. He'd come up, check. He'd come over, and then you win a rook. I think that's kind of what the guy saw, the player saw. If he had played that, yeah. Who'd have thunk that? Who'd have thunk that would basically tear him up? You just don't. That's a move too, but I like this better. This is like devastating. Potentially he can move there. Maybe he can escape. I might have missed something with that. I think that was an error. Yeah, I think the rook move was an error. This is the only move that holds everything in task. This is it, because it stops him from fleeing. And then if he comes back here, he gets checkmated, so he has to actually move forward. And then you can actually bring this rook down. It's crazier than crazy. You take, and then that's what happens. Sweet. You gotta love Lasker's moves. You gotta love it. Okay. Yeah. That is so sweet. Is this where they get the Mason attack from? Because his name is James Mason. Or Madison. I gotta check, see if I'm pronouncing it right. I hope so. Am I pronouncing? Is this the gentleman where that one? Sorry, not Mason. Madison. Is this where the Madison attack came from? James Madison. in the London. Yeah, because they have a line in the London called the Mason attack. So I'm wondering if that didn't come from that chess player. Because I noticed it when I looked at who Lasker played, and these players were really prominent back then. So I'm not surprised that he probably did win with that, and that's where he got it named probably after him. So that's cool to have a opening named after you. That'd be sweet. Okay, f6, d3, knight c5, bishop e3, bishop b6, knight c3, h3. Okay. Boy, this really, if only this bishop was here. And somehow this kind of reminds me of a Madison attack. So we were right. Cool. That's nice. See, I told you we're getting better, guys. We're even recognizing openings, who potentially they're going, who potentially use them and got it named after them. Yeah, we don't want to trade off now. That would be a silly move because potentially he can castle queenside. So we want to keep the love or the pin on the queen. All right. Queen d2 castles is interesting because you can castle rook ad1, and potentially you could take if you wanted to, but I don't know if it's beneficial for black, because that allows for a break in the center. So very dubious move. Knight bishop e3, so that if the bishop took here, pawn would take back, and then if castles, black castles, and now you have a potential double attack with the queen. Rook f7, rook f8, double attack. Now this pawn's hanging, so bishop takes is forced. Pawn takes, h4, bishop c7, with the breaking idea of d5, or potentially maybe just castling queenside, because there's no more light squared bishop for a pin. So you could potentially do that because you don't have to worry about a diagonal pin anymore. h5, knight h8, and castles queenside. You kind of, once you get enough of games under your belt and you kind of get a flow of what ideas are, you'll start to kind of almost predict, like Hannibal Smith said, you can almost predict what your opponent's going to play by the setup of his position. Like I knew potentially black would castle because he wants to have his pieces to their optimum squares, and then a rook slides over, and there's no pawns being flung up the board yet, so this is actually a safer side, especially when the light squared bishop got traded off. This actually benefited black, even though the computer says that white is up a 0.2. I would kind of disagree with that. I actually think black's in control. That's just my opinion. he's got so much more chance of attack. Than it's easier to play for my opinion, black than it is white, because there's more ideas with knight movements, and you even can play c5 if need be, and infiltrate that way. So there's just more play. That's just my opinion. h6, pawn takes. Ooh, if I'm not mistaken, I think somebody told me that this type of formation is considered the master formation because of how I'll actually show you real fast. This is kind of what they I'll just set up a real quick board and then we'll get back to the game. I wanted to show you this is supposedly what they said the master formation kind of looks like. This something like this, because there's really no way to take advantage of these 2 points. The base pawn is here, but I think that's what I heard that, so I'm not sure, so I just want to tell you guys what I heard once. So queen e4 or f4, f3, sorry. So if you have like a pawn here, here, and here, you'd have to go after the base pawn, which is that, and so it's going to be really hard to infiltrate in. So queen moves in. Sad that wasn't there. Then that'd be a cool formation, but castle queenside. It's kind of a force that he actually had to do that, but this now I would say potentially it's equal. I might even at this point slightly favor white here. I like white now better, except I don't like how isolated his queen is on f3. Black does have more, like what you're saying, breaks on the levers, or however they want to call it. So knight d7. There's still a lot of play now at this point. I know I'm going back and forth, but I do like black now with this move here. I really like black because now he's got more play. This is really nice. Yeah, this is kind of a forced move you have to play. He's gonna actually have to. Where's that knight gonna go? Yeah. I'm thinking potentially maybe something like this, and then he could retreat in that way, or infiltrate that way. Even if Lasker plays that, yes, he's undermining the structure, but now we have the ability to move our knight to c3, but this really, in my opinion, is pretty. You're gonna actually have to go knight here, c3, and then knight to c2 to actually get it going. The other idea is a 2-move idea. Well, then yeah, at least have a knight there, but this is a crazy idea. Knight. Okay, so bishop c1, c5. All right. Now we're starting our onslaught. And here, if takes, now that's under fire, so potentially that would have to be played, and then that would be played. Rook would have to come over, and then you win a pawn there, and I think white's winning at this point. It's a very dubious move. Now this really it helps white, but it also helps black in some move sequences because of his pawn. He could reconnect his pawn chain. So because if takes here, then we can actually, would we want to take back? We'd probably have to take with the knight at that point. Then potentially bishop g5, bishop takes g5, and then g takes g5, or h takes g5, and we have connected, but he has a passer, so each to their own advantage. Yeah, he can't. That's actually a sweet pin because of that there. Check. Wow, that was actually an error on Emanuel Lasker's move. Surprisingly, yeah. That's actually losing. Whoa. Because now you're potentially, if he moves back, you lose a bishop. So he's gonna have to take there, and then you take there, and you're not really in the driver's seat. You potentially have that. You have to come up. That's still hanging. So I think in my opinion, I think white's actually losing here. He'd actually have to take at that point. Wow, so close to a see if he moves there. Replace there, takes. What am I missing here? I thought this is mate. What am I missing? Oh, he could take. That's right. Silly me. That's funny. So potentially, yeah. It's going to be a little difficult, yeah. Whoa. You gotta be kidding me. The guy blundered? His bishop would be gone at this point. I mean, his queen would be gone. And black's actually losing here. Wow. I think you can even do mate and 2 if I'm not mistaken here. So, if you wanted to be naughty, but we're not going to do that. So, let's study. Wait a second, did I go over the game yet? No. Well, we'll have to go over this. We'll have to go over this game real quick, and then we'll get into our studies. I'm black. Castles. I was thinking at this point I might have thought about playing Queen C2 or C7 with a threat like that, and if there I can then castle. So he castled, I castled, bishop E, queen there. To attack here, open up the position, and then smash. I want to see if I played right. Smash. So I want to make sure I did this combination right. Takes, takes. So I took incorrectly. So it takes here. Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. Yeah, that does. Wow. Okay. Come smashing right on in. Takes there. First I take, takes, I take, and then I checkmate. But sometimes if you, it shows you, sometimes you have to come crashing through, and you just gotta have the courage to do that. Okay, we'll start into our London. We'll get our studies up and rolling. Chapter 12. Yeah, that was a good one. I was a little nervous when I didn't think about opening up the file. Now I know that that's a pretty darn good idea. Okay, let's see right here, game 13. Oops, turn off the engine. We don't want the engine on. D4, D5, because this is the D5 diagonal. Bishop comes out to F4. Bishop F4, C5. And then, did we already do this Albany counter gambit thing last time? I want to make sure. Did we already do this? Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, okay, gotcha. I think there was an owl bin counter gambit before. All right. Yeah, it's kind of we're doing that a little bit. We're kind of exploring the Albin counter gambit idea. So E4. Oops, darn it! I don't want the engine on. Irritating. Oops. I have to give this mark real quick. Sorry about scrolling down. We get an interesting mark on that. E6 is dubious. That's a dubious move. Because there's really no... also dubious would be here taking there would be a dubious move too. Oops, I gotta... Come on. Shh, come on. Dubious, put dubious mark there. That's dubious. But they're saying that the best move is actually surprisingly knight to f6, and that actually gets a exclam, because that's the only playable idea that is good for black, because you're really not worried about taking at that point, and if you take here, you always can take there with the knight. Take back there with the knight, and you always then have the fortifying move of e6 attacking the pawn. So it's kind of why this is the best. This kind of is reacting to your opponent's idea. E takes D, E takes D. They're also saying at this point, instead of takes, there's a way to take with let me see here. Okay, queen takes d5, knight c3 with an exclam mark. 1 second. That's better. Queen takes d4, and then queen f3. Oops, sorry about that. Let's see. Queen f3. So we'll go back and we'll play out this line. So takes. There, and that gets an exclam. A6, bishop d3. We're almost all developed our pieces. Knight c6, and queen knight bd2 because it's attacking the queen, and then b4. Trying to get out of dodge. And then at this point we would castle queenside, and then we have a total developmental advantage over our opponent. So, but he just took. So now onward. There we played f3, knight f3. There is a it says a better idea. Bishop checks, knight c6, queen e2, check, queen e7, knight c3, knight f6, because you're developing as you go. G5, e6, bishop e6, knight f3, a6 to kick the bishop out, queen takes check, and then pawn takes, of course. Castle kingside, queen b7 to see if he can eye that pawn. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes, knight a4 to infiltrate in. C4 to stop the guarding of this pawn, but it's really not, in my opinion, that good. B3 and knight b5. Oh, it's not knight b4, knight b5. Boom. Potentially with a pawn push, maybe. E3, queen e3, and castles. Oops, castle king's queenside. It's favorable for white. So that's kind of why it takes, and then knight f3, because if he takes here, which is not what he did, you can always just take back with your knight. He's got an isolated pawn, it's barricaded. So knight c6 and knight c3 with an exclam, because the exclam mark, you're probably wondering why. It's the knight is getting ready to potentially, if pawn takes, I think that's no, if pawn takes, we can always take with the knight, and then if his knight takes, we take with the queen. So that's an idea. So bishop e6, which it gets unexclammed for black, because now we're trying to hold on to this. Because if takes here, takes, and then the queen takes, that would be somewhat under fire and an isolated pawn. They're saying a dubious move, which would be a bad move, would be g4. G4 is a dubious move because it really doesn't do anything, and b5 is now playable with a fork. I have rook c8. It would be an idea to kind of stop that from happening. Queen check gets an exclam because you're wanting the queen to move. And black's pieces are awkward, and it would actually force it's saying the withdrawal to e6. That's why, rather than doing that, black's trying to hold the pawn with all of his might, with all their might. So bishop b5 to pin the knight to the queen, so that potentially a double attack might arise and we can win some material. Or we could just castle, probably castles, then bring a rook over with a central thrust. Okay, so d6, bishop d6, which is dubious. A dubious move. Saying potentially, let me see here. Knight f6, I gotta see what that should be good. Knight f6, castles, a7, bishop e7, knight e5, bishop b6, queen b6. C takes D, bishop takes D, and queen d3 with an exclam mark. Because you're predicting what white's going to do next. And then the continuation of goes. This would be a question mark here if he played that move. It's a question mark, a mistake, because of a4, and that picks up a piece. F5, knight takes b6, bishop takes d3, pawn takes d3, exclam. This actually gets an exclam mark on it. Did I put an exclam? Come on. What's going on here? Okay, good. Sorry about that. For some reason I was kind of glitchy there. A takes B. Knight C takes. Bishop takes. And you want a pawn. Drops a pawn. They're saying that move 12 here. They're saying potentially there, and A4. Black has weak squares around the king. So that's kind of the idea, and that's why instead of let's see here, instead of castles there, oops, sorry, A6 is played now, because if there, then the queen could just retreat back, and then if you take, the queen takes. So that's why A6 was played for a flight square for the queen. But D6 is played, which is dubious. Bishop takes D6, queen takes D6, C takes D, queen takes C, and then D4. And this is so powerful because takes, knight takes, knight EG, castle queenside, castle kingside, bishop takes C, knight takes C. If instead on move 13, instead of taking here, if he makes a mistake and tries to fix his pawn structure there, which is a mistake slash inaccurate move. Yeah, rook H, E8, because now you're rook A, I think it's D either. Nope, wrong. One more over. There's a mouse slip there to hold this knight. Knight E4. This gets an exclam mark. Surprisingly, it's pretty interesting of a move, because you're not really worried about winning a pawn at this moment. Bishop C8 and knight C5. Potentially you're gonna walk, so F3, D3, and we're gonna try to gun for, so F7 to. It's not fun when your king has to actually guard a piece. And knight D to E3 right here. It's not fun at all when that comes down the pike. So that's why he just he took back there. He didn't want to see any of that mess. Okay, dokie. Let's see here. Knight takes. Okay, rook h to e1, a6. So potentially the knight can reroute in if need be. Also, it stops the infiltration points of any of these knights going there. Okay, knight c to e2. The idea is f4 to undermine the bishop. Rook f to e8 to guard the bishop. Knight f4. Knight takes d4, and of course rook takes d4. But there is a mistake if black does play this. If he plays d8, trying to keep the pieces on the board, that is a mistake, because knight takes d. It gets an exclam, because it leaves white with a superior advantage. If knight takes, we can then just take the pawn on d5. That's why instead he just took, and then we took back. The knight versus bishop is actually a dream come true for white. How white's knight is so beautifully placed. And even potentially, let's say he tries to attack here. I'm just going to throw a line out there, takes. And if he tries checking, if he tries to come here, you can always take the pawn. So like if he tries there, you can always come over, and when he comes there, you discard that pawn. But this actually didn't, none of this happened, so this didn't happen, so we'll just delete that. None of that happened. So king to f8, which is an interesting move, which really is interesting because it does kind of take away a lot of problems. King d2, with this gets an exclam. There's no rush. You don't have to actually rush stuff. Like, you don't need to have to take. Oops, sorry. No, that's not the right take. There's drawing chances here. This potentially would be a draw for black. Black's in kind of a quagmire of a problem, because the king would go to d2 next, or d1 next, and the rook would have to get off this diagonal. So, but there's no real rush to actually try to get stuff going. So a d8 to guard this pawn. Rook e5, rook e5, and now we're potentially getting ready to take, and then take back, and we'll win a pawn. So this gets an exclam move, a good move. Also, it halts the potential g5 move as well. The rook could just come over and grab it. So h6 is playable, so that g5 can be played, and white goes not a chance. h4, boom. And next, if he can, potentially might be h5, and we'll undermine everything. This actually gets an exclam for black because he's guarding the bishop twice, actually 3 times. So there's no, he can actually at this point, if he takes, he could take back here. And if he takes, he just takes back with the pawn, and his pawn structure is reconnected. So that's actually not a bad move. G6 is not the best because we're just going to work on the sides. And then A5, and we've locked down the queen side, and white's bind is in power at that point. C4, which is a mistake here for white. Surprisingly, that's an error. It's premature. This is actually a 45-minute game, so it's a game in 45. But black also does an inaccurate move too. He believes the threat and plays there. So 2 mistakes. And what they're saying is a potential idea rather than that is surprisingly b6. Rook b6. He missed rook b6, which is actually a double exclam. Oops. Double exclam move. Okay, let's see. Right there, double exclam. C take. Oops, sorry about that. C takes D. Let's see. C takes D. Takes check. King C3. And B5 to take advantage of that pawn. Knight takes the bishop check. F takes, then F4 check, King G8, and D. Wait a second. Oh, rook takes E, rook takes E, and D takes E, and then rook to E5, and it's basically gonna head towards a draw. So if he plays, let's see here. What did I miss here? Oh, let me see. 23. Instead of B5, if rook takes F2, this actually is a double question mark blunder. Let me see. Okay, D takes the bishop. And rook takes A2. E check. That gets an exclam. Because if rook takes, you check, it comes back, and there's a mate. That's why that move is a stellar move, and I'm going to delete that because I'm going to leave this for you guys to go over. That's why that move was an inaccurate move. C takes D. C takes D. Bishop C8. And then H5 to keep this pawn structure undermined. B5, which is dubious. This is a dubious move. You don't really he's playing on the other side when he's He's totally passive. It's like, whoa. King c3 is an exclam, which is, oops, is an exclam move. Oops, sorry about that, guys. It's like, that was a stellar move. I like that move. And it's preparing to get the king over to neutralize this pawn chain. G5 was played, which A5 actually needed. This is a mistake. Mistake here. Oops, good, I got that. Sorry about that. Okay, A5, oops, back. There we go. A5 should have been played here to prevent prevent white from infiltrating. This actually is the best move. It gets in. It doesn't get an exclam. Let me see, what is it? Oh yeah, it does get an exclam because it stops the infiltration of white. This allows basically the probably in passing, I think. Yeah, H takes G, F takes G, and then king to B4. Now the king's gonna wreak a lot of havoc here. So king up to H, F2 or F7. And let's see here. If rather than the king moves to F7, let me see here, G5 is played, knight D3, bishop to attack the pawn, and then king C5, which now guards and allows for infiltration, something similar to that, or maybe a pawn push and then infiltration, something. So that's kind of why F7 was played. King F7, King C5, King F6 to attack the rook. Knight D2, D3 to protect the rook. Bishop F5 to attack the knight. D3, and this rook is protected. This king protects the pawn, which freed this rook up. So everything's going really well. So here, there, that's what was, oops, yeah. That's what was played. Come on. There we go. Sorry about that. I don't know. I'll have to just put it kind of like that so you guys can see. Otherwise it's on the friends thing. That's not fun. And it says that Black's king has reached what it wanted, which was the C5 square, which is important. So if rather than this move, that they're saying that best move would be bishop takes D is an idea. D takes E, because you want to keep it on this. You want to keep this kind of attack, keeping the king. You want to shunt the king or shoulder the king away from attacking this pawn. G5, G4, G6, E5, King F6, King D to E3, F7, check, King F8, and rook to E8. And then if takes here, takes, and there's no way to So if he tries something like this, we could play there. And then if he tries something like this to stop us, we can play here. He doesn't want to play there, because if he does, we can infiltrate in there. So if he plays here, we take, and then we have the one tempo we need. F3, he gives way, and we move in off the board. So that's kind of why he didn't take the knight. He didn't want to see any of that. So knight b7, d6, rook d6, knight c6, because if rook takes, we can just take with the king. Rook here, there, and rook a3, with the ability to win this pawn. And this is what they're saying here is this. The summary up is you have to be careful when we're going to be going basically over the Tarrasch variation. This was the somewhat of the Albin counter gambit setup, so you're getting kind of the feel of the Albin counter gambit if you ever wanted to do it. You're also we're learning how in some lines the Tarrasch variation. We're going to be going over that pretty soon, and so when you put, let's go back here. He's showing that knight c3. Let me see, where's knight c3? Our knight to c3 puts pressure on the pawn on d5. Like if pawn takes, if pawn was to take, knight takes, and then there, the bishop would have to come out to guard, and then there's an isolated pawn, and so we would play against the isolated pawn. And in the normal Tarrasch variation, we would have our knight on d2, but because we did the Albin counter and it's something similar to this, we're actually better in this line. So just want to go over that with you guys. And so now we'll do some of our puzzles. Okay, we'll do like one. We'll do one puzzle, then I got a log. Or I might do two. Depends. We'll see how we're doing. Okay. Oh boy. Let's see here. That was kind of an interesting. It kind of merged from an Albin counter gambit to somewhat of a Tarrasch, and it's just a mix in that study there. I'm learning every day that we go over that. I'm getting better in the London, because the London can deal with a lot of different openings, and you got to know how to deal with it from against black. Gotta be careful on g6. So g6. Let's see. I don't want. We should be okay. I'll leave this with you guys just for a sec. I'll be right back. I'll give you guys some time to look at it. see here. Exactly, that's what I was thinking. Queen to h5. There's like two lines that can be played. There's h5, queen takes h5, and then queen takes d2, and then there's h5, then queen to f5, and then knight a4 threatening mate. I don't know if it's knight h5 right, knight h4 right away, because the queen still is on this diagonal on this file. If we played knight h4 right now, we don't have the same mating threat like we did before. So I believe that h5 has to be played first. It's like a forced move, because we need to draw the queen here, are taking, and then we either win something like that. If we play here, we need, or sorry, here we need to draw the queen there or there, and then we win here, or we threaten mate, which is even better. What do you guys think? I think h5. I'm voting h5. If you guys have any lines you would like to propose, place them in. I'll give you guys some time, because if h5 is not right, I want to see why it's not right, because we always need to learn. It's all about learning. No, you don't have to. You don't have to agree. If you have a line you guys would like to put in, I'm more than happy to go over it, because if this is not right, we need to find out which one is right, because we don't want to lose like 27 points or 22 points. We want to make sure that the move we're playing is correct. But I really don't see anything that, because either way we're gonna win. If the queen moves here, we go there. If the queen moves here, we take there. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this has a double threat idea. And if the queen moves back here, we win this. So she has to stay on this diagonal to protect the rook, and otherwise the rook's gonna fall. And if she moves here, then what would happen is the knight comes there, and we'll actually win a queen for a knight. So I'd probably say that if we were to play here, the queen does have to take, otherwise a queen would be lost. So more likely that's what would happen, but I want to see what you guys have to say if you have anything you'd like to go over. Gotta delete that up there. That's why knight to d6 was actually a blunder. So h5, if queen takes h5, yeah, queen takes d2, d7, that's right. Queen takes d7, correct. And then knight takes f. Let's take a look at this. It's always worth, I want to check here, there, so knight there. Probably king would take at that point. I would take with the king at that point. And I believe we'd be up then a rook and a knight for just 2 pawns. But what if we take with the king? So after here, takes, and then king takes. Well, rather than rook takes. So like if h5, queen takes h5, queen takes d2, and then if knight takes f7, king takes f7. What do you think? Oh, I see. I see the queen. Let me see here. Yeah, let's give it a go. Let's work that line. I'll do one more. Then I gotta log off. Here, there, here. Let's see if we played there. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Let me see. Well, we can't play e8, so there. Pawn takes. Wow. Yeah, that is dangerous. So it's kind of forced. You kind of have to take here and then play queen to f5 at this point, and the queen's gonna have to retreat out. And then you can actually at this point take a pawn. Regain your pawn. Yeah. We win our pawn back. Yeah, we're devastating the opponent. So we'll do one more. Alright, let's do it to it. Okay. That was a good find though. That was kind of an interesting it was removing the guard. Sometimes you have to give a little to get a lot, so we gave up 2 pawns to get a rook. So in that position, it's worth it. So let's see here. So he's taking here, attacking our knight. Attacking our knight there. Yeah, that would be nice if we could do that. I think the queen is trapped if I'm not... Well, no. I think the queen is actually trapped if we play there. Even if he takes, we just move our king. Yeah, I think it is. We'll finish this one. I believe you're right with the trapping. So if he takes there, we go up. And the queen is still trapped. There's nothing there's no way the queen can get out. So I believe you're right. Knight to d7, pawn, knight d7, pawn takes, king d6, and the queen is trapped. Yeah, it's a really odd. I was looking at that when you said about the trapping. It makes perfect sense because this is how it goes. And then after d takes, e6. All right, e6 check. What you can do is move your king up to d6, and you're actually safe. And it's a trap. Sorry about making it a capital D. It should be a small d. So what do you guys think? I'm voting. I vote knight d8. That's my vote. Knight d8. I'm with you on that. So let's take a look at that line. Okay. Let's do it. King d2. Oh, you want the knight. What if he takes, though? I think he's going to take. I think he probably would have to take. Otherwise, the trap works again. If he moves his knight out to c3, I believe the trap still works. Like if he moves d3. Oh, wow, you can actually take there. Does this trap still work, though? Oh, yeah, there's a check there. Ouch. Smack. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there. And actually, this is better for white at that point. So takes. That is kind of odd. It shows that white's actually better here. Let's just give it. We'll give it just a sec. I want to see. The computer's kind of, and you notice that it's kind of odd. It missed this move here. Oh, number of the puzzle, gotcha. 85043. I think that's right. Let me see. Isn't this weird? The computer actually slightly missed that move. Let's just give it a second. I want to give the oh no, it finally found it. It had to go through all of its games, all the game databases that it went over, and it finally found the move. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the line. So knight c4. We'll see if we get mated. But it found it. It found it at the very end. So you gotta commend it for that. Do you have any other questions about this besides that? Sorry if I'm breaking your guys' ears. I was just thirsty. Do you have any other questions? Wow. That's why you have to kind of let the computer almost for a while, yeah. Exactly. It's the creativity. It's the creativity of the human mind that the Lord's given us that allows us to kind of, like, we automatically, once you said about the queen move, about the queen being trapped, I automatically looked at this move and I first of all thought to myself, does the queen have really any exit points? It doesn't have any there, nothing here, none here. And so if it doesn't have any points of exit, is there a piece that we can attack the queen with? And yes, knight d7, d8. Knight d8 handles that. And if he takes, it also does a dual purpose. If the queen takes here, we take back. So it's a really strong, I'd almost give this an exclam. In my opinion, I kind of give that one an exclam move. That's just my. It's not a. It doesn't deserve a brilliant move, exclam, but it's a good move, really good move. Because you're putting aside the threat of your opponent taking the pawn with check. Because you're saying, can this bishop come out and check me? No. So can this knight come out and check me? No. Can the rook come out and check me? No. Can the queen check me? No, because the knight's guarding the e6 pawn. So it's perfect move. There, up after there, up after takes. Yeah. There was actually a game that did a triple exclam. There was a game that did a triple exclam. It was a really, I don't remember the name of it, but it actually had a triple. It was it was like the game of the century of that time. Got a triple because it had like 5 different lines that you can go down. And I don't know if it's 5. We'll just say 3, but I know it's more than 3. But I'll just so that I'd rather be wrong by a little than wrong by a lot. So so that's why 3. That's why I got 3 exclams. Was there was no way, there was like huge lines that it had to go down. So, do you have any other ideas on here that you want to go over, Fox? Okay. Well, with that, then we'll leave off. Do you know what? Keep studying. Remember, if a move can be played, look at it like what Manny Lasker says. If you see one move, check to see if there's 1 or 2 or 3 different moves before you instantly, impulsively play that move. Make sure that the move that you're looking at isn't maybe it may not be the best out of the lot of moves, but if it is, then play it. But remember, don't just play really fast. We've learned that, and we got our points back, which is cool. So that's what we got to do is learn patience, focus, and determination. Sometimes situations will arise that are unexpected. Sometimes they're not fun, but you know what? I like what the little engine said, and the little engine that could. It's in the most recent one. There was a song that said "Joy of the Ride." If the ride isn't, even though it's kind of painful at the moment in your life, if the ride isn't fun, then like my grandfather and my teacher told me that why go on it. So I know it's like, really, this is happening. My rating's not going up. I'm losing rating. My tactics aren't doing good, and you say this is a joy of the ride. Yeah, but trust me, like what we talked about coal, like when coal starts out, but when it's under pressure, it turns into a diamond. But probably when that coal is getting, squeezed under pressure, it's not really happy. But it ends up becoming a diamond in the end. And think about it, coal starts out with not very valuable, but then in the other hand, it turns into a diamond, which is very valuable. So, but it's that process that tries a chess player. So remember that, hang in there. If you guys are, plateauing, even Maurice Ashley says that you have to endure the plateau because that's part of the chess growth. So just remember that. And like Hannibal Smith said that, it's not your move that you have to think. It's not even what your opponent's move is. You have to think before they even move what they're going to move, and then counter that. So you're thinking a thought, you're thinking their thought before they even think it. And that's what grandmasters have, is they have the ability they call it predicting. I call it thought projecting. That's just my my idea that not projecting like the other stuff, but you already know what's going to happen. That's what I should say. You have that in Spider-Man. They call it the Spidey sense. You kind of have that. You know when like something's going to come at you. You know when a knight's going to come at you, a pawn. You already know when that's going to happen, and you already have it planned out beforehand. There's no way. They call it a forcing move in chess, forcing line. But okay, and I believe that tomorrow is the blitz of the Paris Grand Tour. So Wesley's doing good. We gotta say congrats to Wesley, and you know what? We want him to keep doing good. Good job, Wesley. And we also gotta pray for Caruana. He's not doing too well today, but but we know he'll rebound. He's a champion, so we gotta keep him in our prayers and thoughts. But you know what? Remember, keep doing good. And we'll leave you with this thought. It's Wesley Sosa, serve the Lord Jesus, and I say God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Remember, have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. And I'll see you tomorrow, Lord willing, on. And so keep studying chess, guys, and doing good. And you know what? I know you guys will become a diamond and you'll shine bright. So keep it up. Okay? Bye-bye, guys. Be blessed.